Kyle has a genetic disorder called SYNGAP1. We make these videos to show what our lives are like living with multiple disabilities and to help other families like ours feel less alone. Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel and to our second Q&A video. I've received another set of great questions. Some are going to be simple to answer and some are more on the emotional side and a little bit more difficult for me to address. When one viewer sent in several questions, he said to me, "I know I asked a bunch of questions, but I have not had to live the same experiences that you have had to live. Thank you so much for sharing and bringing us into your world." Whoever said that to me, thank you. That's exactly why we started this channel, to bring awareness to others on how just one family living with disabilities has to navigate this world differently at times. All of the questions and topics are listed in the description box below, so if you're interested in certain questions, you can click on the topic to take you to that specific part of the video. The first question is, what is Kyle's favorite book? As you can tell from the looks of this book, Silly Lullaby by Sandra Boynton, this is Kyle's favorite. I've mentioned in other videos that one of Kyle's favorite authors is Sandra Boynton because she writes books that have rhyme, rhythm, and often silly phrases, which makes it fun for me to read to him. I started reading this particular book to Kyle at night in early 2020, and after 2 years, it is still the one he wants me to read to him every night. One of our viewers also follows us on Instagram and has seen me post several pictures about how Kyle puts a particular blanket on his lap every single time we get in the car for months. He wants to know what blanket Kyle uses. We actually did a video about the ways we keep Kyle calm and talked about this particular blanket. It's the Barmy weighted lap blanket and Kyle loves it. Side note, I have a larger version of this blanket and sleep with it every night. I'll also have a link to the blanket in the description box below. A couple of viewers asked some similar questions that I'll combine here. What were your initial reactions to Kyle's diagnosis? Did you find out during your pregnancy or was it later? And if you found out during your pregnancy, did you consider terminating the pregnancy? We did not find out Kyle's diagnosis of SYNGAP1 until he was 14 years old. So by this time, I was already pretty much an expert on Kyle specifically and all of his symptoms and traits. So when I received that diagnosis, I wasn't really learning anything new about Kyle himself or our lives, but how now I simply had a genetic name to explain the reason for everything about Kyle. I was actually surprised to get this diagnosis because by this time, we thought we would never find out the cause. It wasn't upsetting news for me since we had lived the last 14 years in this world of multiple disabilities and special needs. However, it was shortly after Kyle's birth, within weeks of bringing him home, that we started seeing the first signs of disabilities. I had a normal pregnancy and no complications, so we had no reason to even consider terminating. I know that some people would be offended by this question, but I am not because I know that everyone has different life experiences and beliefs, and it's simply a question. Okay, so I've already had to re-record this several times because I keep ending up in tears. So I'll try again. I didn't even have to think about this while pregnant, but looking back, if I had known, I would not have terminated the pregnancy. This life we live with Kyle is extremely hard, and I wish it wasn't like this at all for him or for us, but I hope you can see from our other videos with Kyle that there are truly a lot of great and happy and joyful moments and aspects of our lives because of Kyle and his disabilities. I can tell you though that when we did slowly begin finding out in Kyle's first year of life that he was going to have lifelong disabilities, I was devastated and experienced depression for a time. I was confused, questioned my faith, and didn't understand why this was happening. I basically went through all of the stages of grieving that a person goes through when someone they love dies. Even though I wasn't losing my child, I was losing the idea of motherhood that I had expected and grieving a life that Kyle and our family was not going to have. I know Kyle has SYNGAP1. Does he have autism, cerebral palsy, seizures, or other diagnoses? Just curious, can you explain more of what SYNGAP is and how it affects Kyle? Before I answer this question briefly, I'll also link below to 2 other videos on my channel where I go into a lot more detail about SYNGAP1 in case you want even more information. Basically, everyone is born with 2 copies of the SYNGAP1 gene located on chromosome 6. This gene is responsible for creating the SYNGAP protein that is critical for proper connections and brain development. Kyle was born with a mutation on this gene, which you can kind of think of as a typo when the DNA was copied from cell to cell. So it was completely unexpected and spontaneous. My husband and I were both tested, and we are not carriers of this genetic condition. But because of this mutation, Kyle was born with a non-working copy of this gene, so as a result, he only produces half the amount of this SYNGAP protein. And that is what causes all of these symptoms or other, I guess you could say, subdiagnoses. So SYNGAP1 is a spectrum disorder with a range of severity of the symptoms. Kyle's on more of the severe end of the spectrum, and because of SYNGAP1, he has epilepsy, intellectual disability, autism, hypotonia, absence of speech, behavior issues, GI issues, and sensory processing disorder. A quick break from the questions to thank Skillshare, the sponsor of today's question and answer video. The first 1,000 people to use the link in my description box or my code KellyKyle will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Kyle's grandma used my Skillshare link from an earlier video for a free trial. She has been taking Able Lingo ASL with Michael. She chose this course because Michael grew up with a brother who lost his hearing at the age of 3, and as a result, he and his family became fluent in ASL. If you've been watching our channel for some time, you know that Kyle uses a few signs to communicate. Kyle's grandma had learned sign language in junior high 50 years ago and wanted to refresh her memory on the alphabet and maybe even learn a new sign or two that she could teach Kyle. So whether you want to learn a new skill like sign language or explore your creative side, Skillshare has thousands of classes in their online learning community to choose from. I guarantee you will find something that interests you. Does Kyle like change? Kyle loves routines and a certain way of doing many things in his life. He also likes to watch or listen to the same videos and songs over and over, and it takes a while for him to warm up to a new song or a video that we want him to try. So for the most part, Kyle doesn't like his routines to be interrupted or changed. However, he sometimes does enjoy new experiences like taking a different turn on a car ride or trying out a new playground or going into a store he's never been to. We don't always know how he's going to react though to this new experience. He'll either love it or will turn around and walk right out of that store, indicating that he wants no part of it. Several people asked some similar questions about Kyle's future. They asked if we have a caregiver in place or have made provisions for when me and my husband are no longer living. These are great questions, and only recently have we been able to take action on this. What I mean is that it's not an easy subject to talk about, and many times my husband and I have been known to start the conversation and then get overwhelmed and end up in tears and not able to emotionally finish the conversation. It is so difficult to think about Kyle being in someone else's care. When Kyle was about 5 years old, we did meet with a lawyer specializing in special needs trusts and set up our will with particular family members that will help make decisions on Kyle's behalf. However, we don't want something unexpectedly to happen to us and not have a clear plan in place. We know how life-altering it is to have a child in your immediate care with multiple disabilities who needs 24-hour supervision and full-on assistance. For that reason, we want to have a plan in place for him by his early 20s when he is no longer a part of the school system, so that Kyle's sister nor our family members have to wonder what we want for Kyle or to be at a loss of where to begin. I've been doing a lot of research and will continue to do so this year, and we'll probably end up doing a video about it on our channel when decisions have been made. Do you ever get comments from strangers about Kyle and his behaviors? And if so, how do you handle those situations? From what I can recall over the past 16 years, I have never run into someone who has been rude or inconsiderate intentionally. I say the word intentionally because I have had some well-meaning people say things with good intention, but was not how I would word it to a mother of a child with disabilities. Just to give one example, a complete stranger asked me bluntly, "What's wrong with your son?" I wouldn't word a question like that to someone, and although I didn't like the wording, I knew she didn't mean anything disrespectful by it. That was how she knew to ask in her language and upbringing and limited knowledge of disabilities. I never take things like that personally, but will answer in a way that rewords their question or subtly teaches them more appropriate phrasing. I have had stares and whispers and looks when Kyle was younger, and it used to bother me, but it doesn't now. I know with social media and YouTube channels and more open discussions in schools, I think people are becoming more aware of families like ours and how to appropriately respond. My favorite comments come from children who are blunt and speak their minds and aren't afraid to ask me difficult questions. I actually prefer that and enjoy answering their curious questions. A mother who has a son with a genetic condition who is just 1 year older than Kyle asked, "How is Kyle doing with puberty and hormone changes? How is his behavior when you don't understand him?" And along these same lines, a mother of a 7-year-old with SYNGAP1 asked how we cope with outbursts and difficult behaviors. I was told by Kyle's doctor that it's common for children with SYNGAP1 or other disabilities to have delayed puberty, so we have not entered into this full on yet. I have heard that behaviors can get more challenging and difficult to manage during that time. We have had our moments and seasons of difficult times over the last 16 years. When Kyle was about age 11 to 14 or so, I stopped going out into public with Kyle if I was alone. It was very limiting for me at times, but he was getting taller and stronger, and his behaviors were difficult for me to manage alone. With his maturity and experience, though, he hasn't had many difficult moments lately, or else I have just become better recognizing when it's time to leave a store, or I've become better at redirecting Kyle or distracting him. When we don't understand what he is asking, or we understand but can't give him what he is asking for, he can become very angry. He may cry extremely loud, try to bite his own arms or whatever is near him out of frustration. Sometimes we can redirect him. I'll often use first then language, where I say, first we're going to eat, then you can watch your show. And he has learned over the years to accept that. Sometimes, and again, this has taken years for him to learn, we acknowledge what he is asking for, but then explain as simply as we can why we can't fulfill that request. For example, I might say, "I know you want to ride the golf cart, but it broke and we don't have that anymore. Let's go out on the deck and swing instead." Finally, we also use this chewy in situations where he begins to bite. We'll quickly stick this in his mouth, and often it distracts him and redirects him to calm down. One viewer says she has 2 children with special needs, and it has begun to be a struggle for her to take them to social events and gatherings. But if she leaves them with someone else at home, she feels guilty. She asks how we attend social gatherings with Kyle, and if we always take him to every gathering or if we leave him with someone at home. First, let me just say to this mother, I completely understand and you are not alone. This is ongoing for us and has been something we have had to deal with since Kyle was just a few years old and life became very challenging with behaviors. Basically, when we are invited to any social gathering or event, we'll either decline the event because we don't have childcare, we'll leave Kyle with his grandparents if they're available, or we'll decide a game plan for how we're going to handle the event if things go downhill. For example, will we all just leave early? Will one of us stay with our daughter while the other takes Kyle for a drive, etc.? Having an action plan going into the event helps us because, as you know, in the middle of a meltdown, one can't always think straight. I don't feel any guilt anymore about leaving Kyle with someone while I attend an event because I know that Kyle will most likely be happier at home doing what he wants, and because we work to do certain events specifically for Kyle at other times. We have missed out on things because of Kyle's behaviors, so all I can say is that I don't have an easy answer, but I do understand what you're going through. Someone who has a rare eye condition called ocular motor apraxia asked if Kyle has any vision issues such as no depth perception or difficulty tracking objects or no peripheral vision. Kyle's physical therapist noticed when he was just a few months old that his eyes quickly shifted back and forth at times. We ended up getting a diagnosis of an eye condition called Nystagmus, where the eyes move rapidly and involuntarily. It can cause blurred vision and cause people to tilt or move their heads in certain positions to help focus. We do notice that Kyle sometimes looks at things out of the corner of his eyes or tilts his head a certain way, and I think it's because of his nystagmus. Although better now, he did used to have difficulties with walking when the floor surface changed from hardwood or carpet, for example, or from grass to pavement. The change would cause him to hesitate, and I often have wondered if it was due to his nystagmus. He sees an ophthalmologist every couple of years for testing and to determine if he would benefit from glasses. As of right now, it's something he adjusts to and doesn't affect his overall eyesight. These next questions are from several people about public restrooms, incontinence, and diapers. First, how do you deal with restroom or incontinence issues since he is nonverbal? As of right now, Kyle is not potty trained, so we just check him every few hours. We are hopeful that we can do a scheduled training eventually, and even though he is 16, I have not lost hope that it's still possible to have him at least partially trained. Have you encountered a diaper emergency when you were out in public, and are there changing facilities that accommodate that? A couple of times since Kyle was too big for changing tables and we were out in public, we did have to deal with it in our car in the very back of a parking lot where no one would see. Sometimes we need to lay him down, and you just can't do that in a public restroom unless you're in a private family restroom and have changing pads. Basically, our lifestyle is such that we don't often put ourselves in situations that will keep us from home for more than a few hours with Kyle, so we can hopefully avoid these scenarios. Did you get any reactions from others or feel the need to explain when you need to take Kyle into the ladies' room? Or do you just plan well enough to avoid these issues? We plan well enough to avoid these issues for the most part. I have also noticed that most places we go to now usually have a single-use or family restroom that is perfect for us. Although it's been a while, I have had to take him into the ladies' room before and always felt like I needed to be ready to explain. However, it's usually pretty obvious that Kyle has disabilities and no one has ever appeared to be uncomfortable. A 31-year-old mother to a 6-year-old on the autism spectrum says she feels like her world is small because there are lots of things she always wanted him to do that he cannot. She asked me several questions. How has Kyle's life affected his sister life and her responsibilities? Kelli is 13 months younger, and I could probably do a whole video on how disabilities can affect siblings. Kelli has definitely matured quickly, and that we have had to have her help at times with Kyle's care, or just by her watching us take care of all of Kyle's needs. We've also had lots of talks with her about complex things at a young age, such as epilepsy, medical terminology, and planning for Kyle's future. As she entered her teenage years, she has found it more difficult to connect to Kyle as she would a sibling without disabilities, and she often feels alone when comparing her situation to those of her friends. But she has learned compassion and understanding towards others with disabilities that she's encountered. I am working on a project specifically for the teenage siblings of individuals with special needs, and will tell all of you more about it when it's completed. Her next question is, what are you planning on doing for Kyle legally when he is 18? In Ohio, Kyle can attend his current school for individuals with special needs until he is 22. So we're happy that we still have about 6 years left before transitioning him to a day program or something similar. I'm currently researching all of the things that we will need to begin to prepare for, things like obtaining power of attorney, guardianship, Social Security, Medicaid, waivers, etc. as he approaches 18. Who else other than your husband do you trust with Kyle's care? My parents and my husband's parents are the 4 people we use the most often to care for Kyle. They are the most familiar with his routines and his needs. I would also trust any of Kyle's aunts and uncles, and Kyle has a great team of teachers at his school for children with special needs, and they do a great job caring for him while he's at school. Also in the past, we have had 3 different college-age girls take care of Kyle. One was studying to be a nurse, and the other 2 were studying special education, so it was perfect and helped us feel comfortable leaving Kyle in their care. How are family vacations for Kyle? Does he affect your vacations? Yes, we do vacations differently because of Kyle, and we're all okay with that. The last week-long family vacation we took, just the 4 of us, was 7 years ago. It was perfect because we rented a cabin near Gatlinburg, Tennessee that had a small private indoor swimming pool. Since Kyle loves to swim, it was a perfect location, and we ended up spending a lot of time just relaxing at our cabin, plus doing other activities like a children's museum and go-karts. We've talked about doing that type of vacation again, but maybe the next time taking a college-age helper with us to assist. For the last several years, we have decided to do week-long staycations, which are a lot easier on us for Kyle's care. That way we can save money by staying home and keep to Kyle's routine. We have our neighborhood pool and end up taking day trips or doing fun activities locally. Other than staycations, we prefer weekend trips where we can leave Kyle in the care of his grandparents, who keep him busy with everything he loves, which allows us to more easily get the respite and vacation that we need with Kelli and do activities that we wouldn't be able to do with Kyle along. I don't feel any guilt at all because all four of us are happy. I could go into a lot more detail on some of these questions, but try to keep my answers as brief as possible for this video. Feel free to keep the questions coming in the comments below, and I'll do another Q&A video soon. And remember, if you are one of the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description box below or my code KelliKyle, you will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. We'll see you next time.